she started to get really nervous and really anxious. And the first thing she stated was she was questioning whether it was too fast. And she knew that she typically had the propensity to jump off the deep end into relationships. And her first thought was, am I scaring away my partner? Is this energy I'm feeling their reaction to my excitement? Or is this something that I am actually bringing into the relationship from my past, from these patterns that I've had? And so she asked me, she said, do you mind helping me sit through this and look into it? Should I be worried about this partner? Should I just let go to the flow because it feels so good? Or is there something here I need to work on myself? And then like even a deeper question she posed was, do I really like this person because of trauma bonding? Is this like really love itself, like this incredible feeling? Or is this just because I'm attracted to a toxic situation, which I'm not aware of? And so I said, okay, let's drop in and feel into that. And so we did. And do you want to know what she figured out?
I'd like to start out with you telling the audience what brought us together and why you're interested in the work that we're doing.
Cool. Yeah, so what brought us together was serendipitous, to say the least. And I think we had come together for this Rob Bell journey and experience, but I think that wasn't really what brought us together. There was a moment where we were sitting on that back patio and we both dropped in together and gazed into each other's eyes and just felt into what was there. And I think that's really what was honing us into that moment. And I know we were talking about synchronicity because all these things were just happening in your life, right? All these things were coming together. And you just pose that question out there. What is this about? Ask and ye shall receive. And it's just been happening nonstop in your life. So it was such a beautiful moment to feel into that together and then start to unpack, what is this force? What does this mean? And then how do we actually let go to it to cultivate it, to provide a higher level service, or I'd say more of yourself to those who are in need of finding themselves. So that's my roundabout way of saying how we met.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. I like your interpretation of it. I just remember you and Kara, after I had shared it with the group what I was doing in the world, and she walked right up to me and she was like, want to get lunch? And I was like, yeah, I do. I hate doing meals alone. So yeah, let's go get lunch together. And then I asked you what your name was. And it was a name that means a lot to me. And I was like, oh, of course. Like I just sat there and I was like, of course, Joshua. And you guys had no context as to why that would strike me so deeply. But I was like, man, this keeps happening left and right to me where opportunities just present themselves. And I either greet them or I evade them. And lately, I've been on this mission of greeting these opportunities and just going into it. And you and Kara had been teaching me so much. We had only spent like 16 hours together, really.
Yeah.
And I just got to sit next to you and observe the world around me and ask you questions. I think I, at one point, opened up my phone and I'm like texting and sharing it with you, being like, "What's the question? Like, it's not appropriate to ask out loud. Can you just answer this for me?" And you did, and you answered it so eloquently. And so I wanted to invite you here to think out loud with me and listeners and be able to enrich their lives through conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for me. I'm just honored to be here.
I love it.
So happy to just carry on the conversation that we started.
What about the topic kind of draws you in?
The realness of it and just how intimate the conversation is, not just because it deals with partnership, but it deals with matters of our own heart and ourself. And it deals with conflict. I know that there's outside external conflict that happens, of course, when these things should arise in relationship and we're dealing with other partners or our former partner, but it's really what's happening within ourselves. And then can we find harmony with the actions we take? And also then can we spread that understanding and truth to the best of our ability to everyone in our relationship, regardless of who it might be. And so that's what really drew me in was that, wow, this is really familiar ground for me. I do a lot of integrative bodywork and somatic therapy. And the nature of that work is actually going into the pain rather than trying to avoid it or push it away. Because when we go there and we can rest into it, that's where we have our release. And the most magical moments come from the unknown space.
Yep, totally.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I want to go into allowing you the space to tell a story about, we'll call it a fictitious one, being able to observe a relationship where someone is trying to discern whether this is about me or is this really about the relationship dynamics, and really getting into kind of helping the listener understand how to determine whether it's a red flag or whether it's our own wounding that we need to tend to.
Yeah. That's such a profound question and inquiry because we're really diving into multiple layers there. So I'll just give you a little story and I'll protect the names. But maybe I just won't name who this might be. But if they listen, they'll know. So that's that. But when we get into the story, so I had a friend who became a client and she had been traditionally struggling with a lot of relationship issues. She's a highly sensitive person, like most of us. She can actually feel into her partner and really take on their energy and their trauma. And the feeling, right, where you just start to feel unsettled and you question, is this me? Is this my partner? Is this just the environment? And what is that? And so she had started a new relationship and she was an artist, a painter, very expressive in her life. And so that relationship went from 0 to 100, just like that, just flew up, right? Incredibly passionate. They were painting art together. They were body painting together, just super juicy. And what started to take place was she started to get really nervous and really anxious. And the first thing she stated was she was questioning whether it was too fast. And she knew that she typically had the propensity to jump off the deep end into relationships. And her first thought was, am I scaring away my partner? Is this energy I'm feeling their reaction to my excitement? Or is this something that I am actually bringing into the relationship from my past, from these patterns that I've had? And so she asked me, she said, do you mind helping me sit through this and look into it? Should I be worried about this partner? Should I just let go to the flow because it feels so good? Or is there something here I need to work on myself? And then like even a deeper question she posed was, do I really like this person because of trauma bonding? Is this like really love itself, like this incredible feeling? Or is this just because I'm attracted to a toxic situation, which I'm not aware of? And so I said, okay, let's drop in and feel into that. And so we did. And do you want to know what she figured out? A couple things. She found out that, yes, there was a pattern that she had been living and repeating over time, but it was a holding pattern that she had developed from a very young age. And it wasn't necessarily that she was seeking excitement or a thrill or whatever, but she had actually developed her personality out of the need to be seen and the need to be loved and connected. And that she had never really felt that sense from her upbringing, from those around her. So it almost forced her to go out and seek that within others and relationships. And she was so hungry to be noticed by her loved ones, like her family. And she had been starving for that type of intimacy that it just really forced her to go out and try to claim that from others. And so for others, it would almost feel a little bit aggressive. And she, of course, didn't mean to do that. These holding patterns are often subconscious and they're habitual. And we just don't really notice them until the fire gets way too hot and shit starts burning down. And then, of course, we sometimes feel ashamed. Is it too late? Do I need to repair something? And really, just the first thing to do is just to take a pause and stop, drop into what's happening, and really go into the origin of that impulse of where is this coming from. And so there's practices that I taught her on how to do that. I also helped her move some of these issues too. And it wound up that a lot of this rooted from her relationship with her mother, who was sick at the time, she had been sick for, I don't know, on and off for 5 to 10 years. And she had been so afraid to go see her mom. There was a lot of tension around that. And so all this angst and anxiety was actually a derivative of that fear of connecting with her mother to find true love and to really apologize, or not apologize, but just to come clean to her mom and say, hey, this is how I've been feeling, and just to lay it out there and to feel the safety to do so. And really that sums it up a lot of times with our relationships, where oftentimes we get into something, we're excited, we might be trying too hard rather than just letting it evolve on its own. And we typically see relationships as two people. There could be multiple people, of course, but we just see it more like around the intrapersonal space. Like, how am I feeling? How are you feeling? And we don't really look at it as what are we feeling together. And when we start to look at the interpersonal space, that actually opens us up to this space we call the unitive, which is something greater than ourselves. So thank you.
Wow. I love it.
And intention, it starts to guide the relationship. Now we're still ourself, of course, like I'm still me, the partner's still them, or whatever. And so we still have to keep that sense of self, like lowercase self, while we blend into the capital self, the capital S self. And in that self, some people call it soul, some call it guardian angel, whatever the title might be. It's a more inclusive state of being that's shared by all. And so there really is no separation when we drop into that space.
Would you say that it's the alignment of the intent and
It is. Yeah, surely it is. It's the alignment of intention, which actually creates impact if we are open to receive it.
Mhm.
Yeah, without judgment. That's the key.
Without judgment? Oh my gosh. Okay. Can you go a little bit into that? Because I think for our listeners, it's nearly impossible for them to comprehend an existence without judgment. And so I'd love for you to expand on how you get to a point where you're in a place of observing rather than calibrating and judging.
Yeah, that's a sticky ground right there. Because like judgment is actually a vital function of our existence, of our being, of our survival. Like we have to be able to tell what's this, what's that, just to survive. But judgment actually can evolve into discernment, which is just another form of judgment, but you're bringing in the intention that you mentioned and being honest and true to that to the best of your ability. And with that alignment, the decisions you make are actually more of a group decision, so to speak. It's not just based on like personal interests or how I feel today or whatever. You can rise above those base reactions to things and just notice, oh, that's just me doing that thing again that I do, right? And to not be pulled astray by those triggers that we all have. And so sometimes it's good just to, when those things come up, like the reaction, like when I cuss at someone who cuts me off for some reason, it's good to laugh at that. Look at that and go, oh, that's me. There I go again. And then
Yeah.
I'll cuss a little bit more, right? Oh, that felt good. And yeah, it does feel good, but I'm not going to then go make a decision off of that because I'm aware of my reaction to it. So it starts with that. It's just simply not being taken away and like fully pulled off of our feet or disembodied by something that creates an emotional or a mental response to us. Just to simply notice that and again, be okay with that, because that's the judgment piece, like without judgment. It's not to say that we won't judge, because yeah, I might look at that and go, oh, I'm a shit human for thinking that, which maybe is true for the moment.
I can accept the shitty parts of myself, that's for sure.
Yeah. And that's key. It's key to be good with what's coming up. And it creates this like sense of tenderness and acceptance. And that's what we're looking for, because that creates, again, the openness, and then simply allows more things to come up, heightens our sense of awareness and acceptance of others as well.
Yeah, you can only accept others as much as you're willing to accept yourself.
If you are the other woman in your relationship and you love this podcast, you would love the Other Women community. The Other Women community is a membership program designed to help other women just like you reclaim their relationship with themselves and heal from their affair. We provide a safe and supportive environment for you to open up and talk about your experiences. We give you the tools and resources you need to grow into an authentic, empowered individual. If you're ready to take the next step in your healing journey, head on over to theotherwomanandthewife.com/community to learn more about the membership and all it has to offer. All right, let's jump back into the episode.
Okay, so you were talking about how you were helping her kind of understand what was really at play. Can you give us an example of what it is to discern between a red flag of a relationship versus your own personal wounding that needs tending to?
Yeah, I think a good way to do that is just to do a check-in first and foremost. And you'll have to just find a way for yourself to drop in and to still your body, still your emotions, still your mind. However that is, there's many ways that and practices to do that. Some people will say, okay, let's get mindful, but really just find a place that you can just go where you can be quiet, wherever that might be, and just settle in and relax in. Okay, so once you can do that, kind of gets rid of all these different channels and noises. It's like noise cancellation in a way. So once we do that, we just drop in, we bring up the issue, whatever that might be.
Let's use an example.
Okay. Give me maybe a red flag.
So like a common one that listeners or clients of mine are like, oh my gosh, huge red flag, I missed it. Or I didn't miss it, I on purpose ignored it, is they'll personalize a choice that somebody else made. So recently in the community, there was a woman who felt really slighted by the person that she's in love with because he was dealing with a personal crisis and purposefully avoided bringing her into it. And she's, why would I ever want a man who would want to avoid me in the wake of personal crisis? And so to her, she immediately wanted to tag it as this is a red flag. He can't get vulnerable, asserting all of the things about him. So let's use that as an example.
Yeah, that's a good example, because that's what we talked about, is it's still her and him and not them together. And so if she's able to just first off settle down, settle in, let it diffuse prior to going into thinking about it. Because when we can think on a hot topic, our mind just races and we see all sorts of things. And then we respond off that. Like, you never really want to call someone up once you're heated. We all know that and what happens after that. It's good sometimes just to pause. And so what would be a good thing for her to do, and this is what I did with my partner, my friend, and what I've done with like relationships in the past that I've actually gone through, where like shit's hit the fan and you had no choice but to sit there in it, is that you find a place, again, you drop in, but then you don't bring up the intent of the issue. You bring up the other person first, right? And so you simply calm down and you bring up them in your awareness, just their image. And then from there, you just start to notice your body sensations. How are you feeling? What's happening here? And then you notice what tends to happen is the body will start to give you information. You'll feel something. Your attention will be drawn to a part of your body. Then just go there. And then you repeat the action. You just soften into that area. And then you simply notice what types of thoughts or sensations come up. And there's a nice practice that you can do where, say that she brought in this guy and to mind, and she dropped in and she put him on, meaning that she embodied him. Like she imagined that she was there with him as one being. And then what she might say is, okay, what is the sensation that I'm feeling right now? What is the sensation? And so she opens up into the physical, the felt sense of what's coming up, right? That's the first step. So you feel the sensation. That might feel like, ooh, my heart is fluttering right now. Ooh, it's hard to breathe. Now, rather than run from that, just be there with that. Be there with that and soften into that. And rather than running, then the next thing you might say is, what emotions am I feeling? What are the emotions that are coming up here? And you're focusing on that area that you feel the sensation in because it's telling you something. You can say, I'm feeling fear. I'm feeling fear. And normally if you feel that, it's accompanied by something else. And so the fear might be, I'm afraid to let her know because it might show a sign of weakness in me. And she might think that I'm not what I am, what I say I am, whatever that might be. So something will start to come up, information. And then she'll say, what thought? What is this about? She can ask that from that emotion. And then a thought will come just like it did right there. Like it's a fear of actual closeness or a fear of showing someone your vulnerability. Like for men, that's a struggle a lot of times. Do I really let them in to see that I'm a human? And then you say, okay, so first we've covered sensation, emotion, thought, right?
Mhm.
And then we'll go, okay, what's the impulse? What is the impulse from this thought? And she might get an idea of the impulse. The impulse might be to run. And that's like avoidance. The impulse is to run, to move away from. Okay. And then you might say, after that, what's the image that comes to play? And then she can sit and ponder and get an image from that. And so that's a very simple kind of process that you can do to bring something up, discern what is this? Is this a red flag? Is this some trauma? And in that scenario, it is, yes, it's based on some kind of pattern that he has been avoiding for a while, that's come up within this relationship. And I know that it hurts to be confronted by that if you're a partner, but you can gain a lot of empathy by actually feeling into someone's situation viscerally through your body and settling into that. And the key there is just to calm yourself, and that'll actually help them calm too.
Mhm.
And then you can come to them and talk to them and say, hey, I was just noticing how I felt when I felt into what just happened here. Do you mind talking about it? I'd love to share with you what I felt. And then just speaking from that heart place, if your partner is willing to go there, then healing can truly occur. Sometimes though, people aren't willing to go there, which is totally understandable. And the more you do those types of practices, they actually come faster. You don't have to step through them. And you also you build a stronger relationship with that intimate, intuitive knowing. And that's where you can just open up to that space of self. And then you just almost know. And oftentimes, like that can get us in trouble sometimes when we don't listen to that
Yeah.
intuitive knowing.
Oh, yeah.
And it can be heartbreaking though, sometimes it can be very heartbreaking when we do listen to it.
What you're articulating right now is being able to discover your own personal truth, which I think is the only truth that really matters. And when we avoid our own personal truth and we go in seeking mode of somebody else's truth, that's where we really get ourselves into tricky waters because it was never meant for us in the first place. And so being able to discern where you're meant to be, not through somebody else's inner knowing, but through your own.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very well said. And it's all like a game of recalibration as well, because as we're always growing and changing and shifting, and it's about honoring our own path and also the path of someone else as well. Of course, it feels wonderful to be in relationship with someone, but that does become a shared path and it becomes a life of its own that you're both tending to at that point.
Yeah.
And that's what commitment is, actually.
Oh, tell me.
Meaning,
Commitment. I love this because I was reading something this morning about commitment, and I think there is a fine line between people thinking that commitment is making sure that the relationship lasts beyond the connection.
Mhm.
And me feeling like the commitment actually stems to the commitment to yourself and putting yourself in the path that was meant for you, not necessarily the path that you want it to be.
Yeah, I would fully agree with that too. Commitment comes from calm, so communication. So really that interchange of energy and information really with the self first. But if you can be as honest as you can be with yourself, then again, you are honest with others because you bring that speech, you bring that way of being out into the world. And so there's less holding when you express yourself more fully. That's
Totally.
our goal, if possible.
Yeah, there's less faking it involved.
Totally. And people honor that. Now, some can be a little afraid of that, right? When you're out there just being what you were destined to be. But it's incredibly magnetic. It creates a whole nother realm of fascination and charisma when someone is just radiating what they were born to do. And I always wish that people could just show up more fully, dominated by the beliefs that we hold in this world. Like the beliefs truly shape our body. The things that we believe in, like just will warp our bodies into these strange little shapes, these contortions. And it's really hard to shake off. It's super hard.
It's really hard.
It is, especially because some of them are comfy. Some of these belief systems we actually get comfortable in because they just,
I would say that it's comfortable to have something predictable,
Mm,
but it isn't necessarily comfortable to cling to a belief system that isn't your own. It's the forcing yourself to fit into a box that was never meant for you.
totally. Yeah, exactly. Nor meant for someone else as well, to your point. And going into a relationship, we often bring in these belief systems on the relationship. Like we believe this is what it is, and we believe that this is how it's going to go, rather than going, I don't know what this is, but I enjoy feeling it. Let's see what happens here. Let's see what emerges.
Yeah.
And can we ride this out? Can we ride out what arises between us?
Yeah. One of the words that you have used a few times that I'd like a 101 on what it really is, this word somatics. What is that word? I know
Yeah.
that soma means body, and that's about it.
Yeah. I think that kind of sums it up right there. But yeah, somatics it was a term that was coined, I believe, by either Wilhelm Reich or Thomas Hanna, to my understanding. Dates back to probably the 40s or so. There was a big movement of more body-based psychotherapy back then. People were doing a lot of psychology and looking at personality types. And the body had always been the informer of wisdom in these ageless traditions. You drop in and you feel into the body, and then you receive wisdom through that, through the body signals, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they thought, okay, awareness is the healer and the body is really the vehicle of consciousness. Okay, let's put programs together around being informed by the body's nature, by this body mind connection. Like somatics has become much more popular these days with therapists who help people come into a better relationship with their body, like actually feel into the body and notice these little nuances and micro movements and just sit there with it and then question with curiosity, what is this feeling that's taking place? And really looking at it objectively, if possible. But it really helps to have a coach, of course, at times to help guide you through some of these processes until you can figure it out yourself. But they're simple. There's so many different modalities, though, in this space. It's pretty wild. But I tend to think that we're all born equipped with this ability, which we are. And we all have our own art form, of course. in ways that work best for us in the situation, which we call the now, an any moment to moment situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I also want to talk to you about, I think you're the first person that I'm ever going to talk to. And I didn't even check. Are you okay with talking about sex on the podcast?
Yeah, sure. Of course.
Okay. So when you and I had met previously and had conversations, one of the questions that I raised with you was about how many people who are currently inside of affairs wish that they could experience sex the way that they do with their affair partner, with their spouse. They think, or what they say, is that if only the sex between my spouse and I could exist in the way that it does between my affair partner and I, it would be easy for me to let go of the affair. And I'd love to hear you opine on that particular sentiment.
Yeah, I think that's completely natural and normal. It's not only because of something new and novel, but it's not just because it's has this edge to it or thrilling. I would say that again, when we get into a groove, we just play that groove and the groove can just wind us down and just round us out. Like you play something long enough, you run your hand across something long enough, it creates a ditch, creates a rut, and it's hard to get out of that rut. And then all of a sudden you look up, you're like, holy shit, this is dark in here. This isn't fun. I'm not feeling it. They're not feeling it. What are we doing? And then when you resurface, everything is fresh and new. You feel different. You feel vitalized and you're more apt to express things that are just beyond yourself because yourself was actually down in that rut. You just didn't see it. So it's just a product of being worn down by repetition. And it was relatively easy for couples to add in a little spice into their relationship, into their sexual life. And the simplest thing could just be getting out of that habitual, mundane way of making love and adding in a little bit of consciously directed or creative lovemaking. There's a ton of things we could talk about, like bringing in touch and sensuality back into the bedroom. And what does touch actually mean? Like, how, am I really feeling into my partner? Of course, like the first time you connect with someone, there's so much aliveness. It's so vital. And that vitality is still there with someone you've been in relationship with, you've had sex with for a long time, but it's just acknowledging that it's still there. We often forget and go to sleep at the wheel. So again, it's can I be fully present with this person now? Not have a playbook when I'm going into making love that helps revitalize a relationship. But sometimes if something is dead, it's hard to bring it back to life though. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's funny, as you're presenting your thoughts on this, the one thing that keeps popping up in my mind is, and this isn't unique to one client, after discovery or disclosure of betrayal, there's this really interesting response of the betrayed party to go into this hypersexual state. And there is this guilt, obligatory response from the party that stepped out. And so what they do is they try to force sex to happen. And most recently, this one client that shared with me what she was experiencing, she was like, he wants it every single day. And he wants it like 2 times a day. And if I don't do it, then I have to deal with him pounding. And she gets really frustrated by this because I want to prove to him that I love him through being able to meet this request. But at the same time, I don't want to do it. I'm doing it for him. This isn't an experience for us. This is more about me being able to protect my future state of having to deal with somebody else's emotional load. And I'd love to hear what you think about that.
Yeah, that's a form of control, as you might know. And I would say that it's a form of violence. And I don't use that word lightly, but it's violent in its intent because it is to dominate over someone else and to use that situation against them as if you owe me. And remember, like violence isn't just played out in the physical sense, it's also played out in the mind and in the emotional nature as well. And so that's and we bring up the term, right? Like somatic emotional response, but that is very abusive to put someone in that type of situation. And it's also a way that someone can groom someone as well, like numb them out to accept that reality and even propagate it potentially further. So it's doing a disservice for both people not to bring it up, even though I know there's a lot of times that there is something on the line, like children or a home or something else that, is in the middle of the relationship. But I just beg for someone in that situation to take a step back and take like a personal inventory in their heart as they're doing and go, is this right? Shall I really continue this? And of course, they'll get multiple answers, but if they go deep enough, they'll see what they should actually do. And they'll also get a better sense of self-worth and be able to stand up against that and speak
Okay.
honestly from their heart. And we just hope that the person who's inflicting that trauma can actually hear it.
Yeah. And it's so wild because I feel like in the fallout of infidelity, one of the things that occurs, at least with most of the clients that I've had, is they step outside the marriage and their hope is that when discovery or disclosure happens, the betrayed party will be repulsed by them and let them go entirely. It's almost like the strategy is to make it so that they'll let them go, which is also a form of power and control. I understand that. But with this particular scenario, when the betrayed party does not respond in the way that the unfaithful party had in mind, all of a sudden it's, oh no, I'm confused again.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't respond the way that I thought they would. And now they're responding in this hyper obsessive way. And I should be grateful for that. Lots of operating within the confines of the I should be this, but I really feel this. And one of the things that I'd love to remind people, and I'd love to have you wax poetic on this, is the purpose of your experience in your own body. So I often bring clients back to, do you believe that the purpose of sex is to keep your husband's emotions at bay?
Yeah, sex should never be used where it's disempowering someone, especially ourselves. It isn't designed for that. At the basis of sex or intercourse is actually spiritual union. That's really what it is. If you really go into it, of what's taking place there, that intercourse between your lower self and your higher self, that's what sex is. And that's what actually moves humans forward. It manifests out in sex, in the act of sex, but there's this internal interchange which is taking place at all times. And so again, like we don't want to desecrate that. If we're desecrating it, then we're shitting on ourselves. So you gotta be very careful on having reverence for sex and also for the physical act and also internally within ourselves. But we often don't really think about intercourse in that way. Like we're having constant sex with everything in our environment. If we think of it like that, like what am I blending with? What am I letting into my field? Like I'm fucking all that stuff. It's fucking me. And so what do I choose to have sex with? What patterns am I going to groove with? Like what feels good to me? What doesn't feel good to me?
You had also said some really powerful shit in our private conversations about sex being an attempt for the masculine and feminine to become whole.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be able to share a little bit of your wisdom on that particular topic about the attempt of becoming whole through sex.
Yeah, that's heavy topic. We just touched on it then, like with the higher self, lower self, but there's also taking like the yin yang, right? You have the masculine and the feminine aspect of creation. Or if you look at some of the Western mystery traditions, like the Kabbalah, you have the left pillar and the right pillar, but in the middle is the middle pillar. It's the blending of the two which creates the way. And so both are important. Light and dark are important. expressing all of those things are important, but not to be taken away by them. If I'm uber like holy and shit, I'll get annoying. People don't want me around. I don't want myself around if I'm like super righteous or whatever. But if I go dark, maybe people want me around, but not for that long. And so the thing is, can we be okay and express severity and mercy at the same time and see the need for them both? And if we can, then we find harmony. I love the term for intuition. It's actually harmony through crisis is intuition. That's another term for it. And if you truly want to love someone, you have to be daring. There has to be some kind of daring involved in it. Otherwise, it's not love. You're not putting yourself out there.
Don't stop. Keep going.
Yeah.
That shit was good, dude.
Thank you.
Yes. Like, I fucking love the balance that you strike in being able to acknowledge and observe the radicals, right? Like that the radicals are necessary, but it isn't necessary to belong to one specific radical.
Correct.
It's more about understanding the necessity for both.
Correct. And that's the practice. And the practice really is to just drop into the knowing that these things are there and to be okay with it and to have peace around it and to go, yeah, sometimes I'm going to rip some jokes. Hey, that's fine. I noticed I did. And it feels good. And yes, sometimes I'm going to sit there and meditate or do something else that's just above the board, which is fine too. But again, it's finding a balance, having peace with the balance, and noticing, like, do I get off on the deep end on either side? And also, though, like, that's why they call it uprightness or whatever, but where are my values and where are my morals and what principles am I living by? And that keeps us on that razor's edge. That keeps us there. And some of that's just common sense, but we often forget those things, those really basic core things.
I love this episode so far. Okay, so as we get ready to close up, I'd like to go back to that initial story that you shared about a woman who was trying to understand whether it was her or them and bring some closure to that story.
I can, yeah. What we did is she came over and we did a practice together where she was able to really take on that relationship and feel into what that other person was experiencing. And then the thoughts of her mother came up and she wasn't even aware of that. And so we quickly shifted into that relationship because they're connected. When something pops in, it's not random that it's popping into frame because it's all about your attention and your interest at the moment. And you're giving these clues or cues off that intention. And when they come in, go there, open up that door and see where you go. And she did that. And she found out that, I had to go see mom. And she actually went ahead, called her mom up, got the nerve up. And I think the practice helped her. And then she went out to go see her. And it was an incredible experience for her. I did do a little bit more work with her. I actually put her on myself. And I have a practice for that I'd love to teach you at some point, where you can actually drop in and embody someone else and really feel viscerally what they're going through physically. And then you can actually help them move those issues skillfully from a very precise place of knowing. And it's all body-centered practice. So I found that she had this huge weight on her that she had been wearing, like a lead blanket. And she was struggling to get this blanket off. And so I did the work where I say we all the time because it's not just me, it's the field that's assisting in it. But we were able to remove that blanket, find some light and peace, and gain clarity. And then she called me the next day and said, I feel as if this huge weight has been pulled off my whole body. Like I had felt submerged, like I was drowning in all of this worry. And now I feel lighter. What'd you do? And I said, I didn't do much. I just took that on for you, but or whatever. So that's a part of the practice. There's so many applications for that type of work, but it's all in healing. And it's all in gaining a brighter understanding of our own nature, but the nature of the relatedness of ourselves with others and even the greater world around us.
I love that. I really love that. I just want to let the listeners know that if they're interested in more of what you have to say, that you can find more about Josh in the show description and the show notes, and to let us know in the comments. And we'll definitely bring him back for another episode.
I'd be so down for that. Even like streaming it and letting people just throw questions in there, feeling into it together and just sharing from what's coming
Yeah.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love.
Thank you for coming, Josh. And we're so glad that you're a part of this mission with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this podcast episode. We appreciate your support and would love to hear your thoughts on it. If you've made it this far, you're likely someone who is invested in the journey of being the other woman. We understand that this can be a difficult and complex experience, which is why we offer guided coaching to help you heal and move forward. We encourage you to explore the links in the episode description or visit theotherwomanandthewife.com/coaching to learn more about our exclusive coaching program and apply today. Thank you again for your support, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.